Namaskar and welcome. My name is Johanna Sestito, and I'm a Fulbright Distinguished Award in Teaching Research participant from the 2021 cohort. Thank you for taking the time to explore my research project from potential to opportunity, secondary retention and attainment strategies in Delhi government schools. The purpose of this video is to give a quick overview of some context about myself as a researcher, to introduce you to the Delhi region if you're unfamiliar, and to provide some highlights from my research process and time in India. I've been a secondary teacher for around 16 years, both in Ohio and in Alaska in the United States. Most recently, I've been a secondary special education teacher in rural Alaska for both middle school students and high school students. I was selected for this program in July of 2021 and spent about a year in preparation. My time in India was 4 months, from August through December of 2022. The motivation for this project came about during the COVID-19 pandemic, when I, as well as educators across the world, worked tirelessly to provide educational access to our students. However, we also saw disparities in the students that were able to obtain this access. Most of the time, these disparities were related to socioeconomics, sometimes geography, and other times just a broken system. That's when I began looking for solutions to these challenges outside of the United States. And I came across the National Education Policy of 2020 in India. It puts equity at the forefront of educational reform. It also aims to combat some of the effects of colonization that have been long-lasting within the educational system. In Alaska, our graduation rates and educational attainment have increased throughout the years, but recently they've plateaued. This is due to many of the same systemic and geographic issues that students in rural India face. So I wanted to experience how schools are combating these issues in person and applied for the Fulbright grant. Shortly after arriving to India, I realized that the implementation of the NEP 2020 was still in process, and I wasn't going to be in a position to be able to see specific tangible changes resulting from that policy. So I shifted my research to Delhi government schools. The government schools parallel public schools in the United States, given that they do not require a tuition or fee. And the schools in Delhi are known across the country for being some of the most innovative. So I had a lot to learn from their teachers. Delhi government schools serve close to 2 million students in over 1,000 schools throughout the National Capital Region. The closer you are to the national capital, New Delhi, the more urban the area is. But as you extend beyond that, you'll find villages that are considered rural, even though they have a high population and may even be connected with public transit. This means that many families are migrant in nature. They'll come to the capital for work opportunities and then return to their home villages frequently for family responsibilities, holidays, festivals, and other reasons as well. Compulsory education is required due to the Right to Education Act that was passed in 2009, and this is for students age 6 through 14. Students begin their schooling in Class 1 and attend primary or elementary through Class 8. They transition into secondary for Classes 9 and 10, and then higher or senior secondary for 11 and 12. India's schools rely quite a bit on high-stakes standardized testing, especially at the secondary level. There's a board test at the end of Class 12, and there's also a board test at the end of Class 10, and another board test at the end of Class 12. There's an attendance requirement in order to take these tests. However, that can be waived under special circumstances. Unlike in the United States, students in India are not considered graduated until they've completed some sort of post-secondary program. However, I wanted to focus attainment on classes 9 through 12, so the standard traditional high school years in the United States. You can see here that secondary attainment has increased throughout the years in India. However, there is still some disparity between students in rural areas and students in urban areas. You can also see that the largest dropout happens or occurs from class 8 to class 9. So that transition is quite important for students to continue their education. However, in Delhi, looking at both their urban and rural students, their dropout rate is nearly half of what it is across the rest of India. With this information in mind, I narrowed down my research to 3 questions. First of all, what prevents students from attaining secondary and higher secondary education in Delhi? What are the characteristics of effective retention programs? What should we be doing in our schools? And then finally, what are they doing in Delhi schools that are so successful? I wanted to prioritize teacher perspectives on this, and so this is how I focused my interview questions. In addition to teacher interviews, I also visited a few school sites. I looked at national survey data and also reviewed literature, both academic and open sources, things like Facebook and newspaper articles that were being written about Delhi schools. As you can see here, there are different types of reforms currently happening. I took this picture from the Directorate of Education during one of my visits. And they're focusing their reforms on interventions for students, building strong school communities, improving school infrastructure, and interventions for teachers and principals as well. In order to implement effective programming to increase secondary attainment, we have to understand what the needs are and what the barriers are that already exist. The national government in India provided a survey to students and parents in 2018 and 19. They surveyed people who had dropped out of school and asked them why. The top reasons for males tended to be that they were engaged in financial activities, meaning they had to provide some sort of finances to their family and couldn't do that and attend school. For women, they were engaged in domestic activities. There's definitely a social expectation that girls will be home, that they will help with the family, they will take care of siblings, they will take care of older family members, and many of them have a hard time balancing that and the expectations of school. After that, another widespread reason for dropout was just not being interested in education and financial constraints. Again, many of these are socioeconomic in nature. The teachers I interviewed echoed these same reasons that their students faced. The reasons that students struggle to attend and complete the secondary education levels can be broken down into 3 main categories: aspiration or a belief that it's worth their time and investment, availability and access to education, and financial barriers. Some specific reasons are that they're forced into caste-based occupations where there's few salaried jobs, migrant families moving between the Delhi National Capital Territory and their home villages, and a lack of technology for the teachers to be able to communicate with the families, to know exactly what's going on with the students, and so in essence, they disappear. Students also who don't have the academic skills to be successful at the secondary level tend to lose interest and to feel like attending school is just going to result in failure, so they stop. Some gender-specific challenges are that parents, especially those with low economic means, prioritize education for boys and spend their money on tuition in private schools for them because there's many more employment opportunities for the boys than there are for the girls. It's also common for girls to get married or at least engaged after class 10. This was especially the case during COVID because many of the dowries were being waived to ensure financial stability for the girls. Girls must be available for domestic responsibilities in order to support their families. And in some cases, especially in the rural areas, it can be physically dangerous for girls to travel to and from school. And there's very limited transportation opportunities and none that come at no cost other than walking. As I talked to the teachers, it became very apparent that there's no one specific reason why a student stops coming to school, but it's a process and something that teachers play a critical role in stopping and attending to. Although there are so many challenges to secondary attainment within Delhi government schools, there are also quite a few initiatives and programs that are helping students overcome those challenges. You can find out more about these initiatives on the Initiatives and Programs page, where you'll find in-depth descriptions about each of them. In order to understand why those initiatives and programs were working, I analyzed them through a retention strategy framework. These strategies have been research-based through the National Dropout Prevention Center, and you can learn about each of these on the Retention Strategy Framework page. The ones in bold are the ones that you'll see being implemented through the initiatives in the Delhi government schools. My time in Delhi was made quite special by other Fulbright Teacher Exchange alumni who worked and lived in Delhi. Ms. Miru Lahoya invited me to an e-magazine launch, where due to the monsoon rains, there was a delay in programming, and I was able to present about my time living in Alaska. The director or the Directorate of Education attended, as well as other high-profile education officials. And this is where I was first introduced to the lighting of the lamp, an auspicious tradition that notes the beginning of something good. The students were really excited to share their work, and afterward, a few of the senior secondary girls offered me a copy of their magazine that they had printed. I noticed that many of the pieces centered around female empowerment and about the importance of education and the opportunities it provides. I was also hosted by Mr. Rajesh Kumar, who works at the District Institute of Education and Training in Dilshad Garden. He's also a fellow Fulbright Teacher Exchange alum. He invited me to visit with his students. These students are in a 2-year program to become primary and elementary school teachers. They were so encouraging and enthusiastic. They had many questions about the teaching practice and profession in the United States, and were eager to show me what they were learning about their own lesson planning and ways to engage students at the younger primary level. This was also my first henna experience, which was quite special. I'm definitely leaving India having learned more lessons than I expected. India is extremely diverse, and you wouldn't know it until you went and met the people and got to know their individual identities. India and the United States are very connected, both politically, economically, and in other ways. Teachers share the same heart and spirit across the globe. As soon as I met a teacher, I felt right at home and had a fast friend. There's a sentiment that education is a gift and a phrase that teachers are God in India. And that's definitely felt when you interact with the students and see the ways that education is revered. Disparities exist in all societies. The United States has many of the same challenges that people in India face, but because of our population and because of our geography, you don't always see it the same way that you do in India. However, no matter what a person's background is, they always have kindness to share. And that was something that I experienced from people of all walks of life, kindness and helpfulness. And finally, life and learning should be celebrated. I don't know how many holidays there are in India, but I know that there's a way to celebrate each one of them, whether they're of your own culture or of somebody else's. Lastly, I can't say thank you enough to the Fulbright Association for taking a risk on me. This was the first experience that I had abroad in a professional capacity, and I hope that it won't be the last. Also, many thanks to IREX and USIEF staff. You made this transition seamless for me. Thanks to the Fulbright alumni hosts, as well as my university faculty advisors, Dr. Gupta and Dr. Papamihil. I couldn't have done this without your guidance, and I hope to do you proud. Thank you so much for your time and attention.